So I want to address a question to the entire panel, the other members, other than Dr. Labarang, to actually address the issues that he raised. I think that's a very important question. From each of you, how can you answer his concerns? Okay, the governments have priorities. Okay, we are not looking necessarily at these. Are you looking at these priorities? What are the sectors that you are focusing on? And I want to start with Bank Misr, with Mr. Hani Farahat. How would you address the concerns of Dr. Labarang?
Well, I totally
in a couple of minutes, huh?
Sure, I totally agree with you that what Dr. Labarang has mentioned are basically key priorities, and I'm happy you raised those points because I think we were early comers and thankfully successful comers into answering those concerns. Now, I'll tell you very clearly and very bluntly, the initiative that the central bank has launched gave the attention to SMEs, but did not necessarily dictated what sectors we should be financing. This was completely left to the market, left to market dynamics, and left also for the degree of advancement when it comes to the thought process of those companies to come to us and present their case. So if I, as a bank, am seeing one of those small businesses coming into the consumers industry, for example, and it's very aware of what it needs to be done and has a very solid plan going forward, I would prefer to fund that company at the expense of another one in manufacturing that is coming just with an idea without a solid study or a plan or even co-financing teams that we could capitalize on. So the key success to the experience of Egypt and Bank Misr in this response is that it was left completely for the market to decide. And let me tell you one other key point that is very beautiful when it comes to banking. We have more than 600 corporate clients. We see in our database what type of backward and forward linkages they may have with smaller businesses. So we can tell from mapping of our corporate clients where are the market opportunities of smaller companies that we could finance that already have revenue waiting for them to be achieved once this funding is complete. So we connect the dots between small and bigger and much larger companies in that response. Now, another point that I need to mention as well is that Bank Misr already have a subsidiary that is co-joint with other public banks that is specifically mandated to invest in Sub-Saharan Africa. It's called Nile Basin Investment Company, and we would be much more than happy to collaborate. By the way, it's part of our core mandate that we're opening branches of Bank Misr, and we're collaborating with other banking institutions in more than 22 African countries as well.
We are stating that we have a strategy to open in Africa more than 12 branches in the coming 3 years.
And I hope it would not be only on the Nile Basin countries. You have also to look further to those countries.
Not because the Nile Basin, all of Africa. Yes. All of Africa.
Yes, you have to look all of Africa. And especially, you know, I am, as being ambassador here for a long time, I'm a little bit frustrated to see that, you know, when we think about banks from North Africa in going to Sub-Saharan Africa, we don't see much of you. And
you will see much of us in the coming years. Yes. But the importance that you have to help us in getting the approval from your central banks there, because we face some difficulties in getting approval from the central banks in African countries.
So we'll be very much,
this is going to be a very important point to address you, Dr. Labarang. Yes, this is going to be a very important point to address you at the end, after I hear from the others. What are you going to offer on your side in terms of facilitation? But let me go to Dr. Khalid Ismail. Okay. Dr. Khalid, the GF that you proposed, very innovative tool, how does it contribute to what Dr. Labarang has talked about in actually fulfilling the needs of Africa? This innovative tool, what does it provide? Dr. Khalid, in a couple of minutes.
We thought that it's very much in line with what His Excellency mentioned, which is sectoral focus and so on. And as I said, we picked up 3 sectors in particular: health tech, agri-tech, and waste management. And these 3 areas are huge. just the potential in Egypt in each one of them is the untapped potential is $10 billion worth. There is a $10 billion worth value that's put under the rug in agriculture, another 10 billion in waste management, and a third 10 billion in health tech that is untapped. So we invested in those three sectors heavily in Egypt, and we became known for that. And we looked at Africa, and guess what? It's exactly the same three sectors that are also untapped in 90% of the African countries. Very few recycle what they have, very few upcycle and create value. And it has so much tremendous impact on the countries in terms of, you know, environment, and in terms of green energy, and also in financial possibility of creating value. I'll just give you one example, a company called Biodiesel Misr. They take the used cooking oil when people fry their food, they throw that used cooking oil down the drain. So for the government, this is a big and serious problem. It clogs the pipes. They have to go and clean it later on. It costs them over 120 pounds a ton to be cleaned at the water and sewage stations. Instead, Biodiesel Misr collects that used cooking oil, transforms it in their factory in 6th of October to biodiesel, and exports it to Europe. Now it's a revenue that comes in dollar terms to Egypt. So it's export oriented. It's a clean energy because they create biodiesel from edible oil, which means very low emission. It cleans up the environment from people throwing down their oil and so on. We looked at multiple countries in Africa, particularly Rwanda, and decided to start there another biodiesel Rwanda. And then there is a biodiesel Zambia coming later, probably next year. So these are expansion ideas in waste management, green energy, that we borrow from an existing company in Egypt that has proven it and is very successful. We'll do the same thing in agriculture. You know, most of the African countries import their fertilizers. It's a huge source of, foreign currency outflux, which should not happen. We have a lot of organic waste and things that we can use in favor of our agricultural sector, which brings better value and lower costs. And same thing in health, where most of our health products are imported from countries. And to tell you what, even those countries, US, Europe, and so on, are complaining that the health sector there is inefficient. So we have an advantage here that we can leapfrog using technology. So we will focus on these three sectors in particular. And in many African countries, what we're doing is heavily needed. And I fully agree that government should just support through regulatory issues. We're not asking for more than that. Like if I clean the environment, they should give me support for that, not financial, but at least, support it one way or the other. We look for local institutions to support. I'm glad Bank Misr mentioned their investment arm in Africa. We reached out to them as GIAF and they refused to invest with GIAF. Obviously, no good reason, to be very honest. I'm blunt and I say that public here, but if they don't invest in GIAF, who else would? Of course, CDC is very positive about it and we're very happy, and others are. But I'm complaining about our local investors or financial institutions who should come first, actually, not last. So anyway,
let me just add one key point here. Now, when I mentioned Nile Basin Investment Company, it's only one of the subsidiaries that would handle such initiatives, but we do have many other vehicles that we can collaborate with GIAF. So if the GIAF investment mandate does not suit the Nile Basin Investment Company, there are others that might be potential partners. And the second thing is that also the mandate of this company is expanding and considering much larger number of countries to what initially it has been established to do. So even going back to Dr. Labrang's comment, on the banking side, we're focused more on West Africa now. So looking at countries like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and other countries within that region that are not necessarily Nile Basin are definitely part of our focus. So we're seeing very strong change within Bank Misr under the...
Where is the Cameroon, Mr. Henry?
No, he forgot.
Where is the Cameroon?
No. I didn't
We
forget.
have
It's
the Cameroon ambassador
a
here.
pipeline, and it's tier 1 within our bank, so it's under consideration.
You have to add
Don't
it to the
forget,
list
we have,
immediately.
we have,
It's already on the list.
Move on.
we have Antimary Wafa already. So please, you have to come quickly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we look forward to that, by the way.
Thank you.
This is a comment, and when you said problem with GF with Dr. Khaled Ismail, Mr. Rani, when you settled the problem with this complaint that we heard on air now by Dr. Khaled Ismail, ECS has to get a percentage. I mean, you're going to settle your issues on our platform, so we are going to be part of this. I'm just indicating this
and I'll make sure you get it from Khaled.
Okay? This is on Facebook.
Absolutely.
No, not from Khaled, from you. You are the bank. Come on. I mean, Khaled is just an innovator. I mean, who's coming up with ideas. You guys, you are the guys with the money. Everybody else.
Always
Also,
our pleasure.
we have.
Give money, I give mentorship.
What are you saying?
Bank Masr gives money, I give mentorship. So that's the division between our roles.
Yeah, of course, and we receive at ECS because we are getting you guys on the same platform. It's very clear for me. It's very obvious. Before I move to Dr. Okola, I want to go to Ms. Shireen Shohdi, who we lost in the connection. Technology fails us no matter what we do. With your 70 years experience and the long-term financing that you're offering, how can you again address the points that were raised by Dr. Lagrange in the extent that it really addresses the issues of development in the continent? You are offering what they need. I mean, given the 70 years, you must have learned, okay, what works and what doesn't work. So how would you address this point? You are with us, right? You can hear us, Shireen, right?
Yes, I'm back, and apologies to everyone for the complete crash of technology. It is a blessing, and sometimes it doesn't always work in our favor. But I think again, I would tend to agree. So it's what we're seeing, and it sounds very nice, but when you come to look at it from the practical on the ground experience, it's not always that easy, and it's not really a walk in the park. However, institutions with the belief in Africa, and long-term investors like myself, like CDC, like the likes of Bank Misr and Afri-Exim and many other players in the market are in there to stay actually for the longer term. We understand these challenges, and I think some of them is really picking and being able to provide the capital to opportunities that we believe are mostly sustainable. Whether it's sustainable not just from a financial perspective, but from a financial perspective and economic perspective as well, to help the development of these economies where we want to go. I would say this is a key lesson for us. I think devil is always in the details. I think one of the things that came across is the devil is always in the details. There's a lot of opportunities out there that might sound and seem very nice from the outside, but once we dig deeper into them, they're not as solid as we think they are. And it's really trying to find these gems, I would say, and finding the golden opportunities. And I think the playing field is still very virgin, if I may say. There's ample room to grow, and there's ample room to accommodate a very large number of players across the different sectors. Building up on these economies from bottom up is a nice approach that we take, and to try to build on trying to create more jobs, trying to address inclusion, trying to address women empowerment, trying to provide access for more avenues for the utilization of our capital, becoming more creative and more flexible in how we can offer these solutions. It would never be a one-size-fits-all, to be honest, particularly in Africa. I think that's another thing we've seen. It just doesn't work. A one-size-fits-all doesn't generally work. It does require a lot of flexibility. It requires a lot of belief in the longer term vision and the growth story, and being able to support that, whether it's not just purely through funds, I think, as Khaled had mentioned throughout his presentation, but it's really providing the support for building the human capacities and building the skill sets required, building up the relationships on the ground, and being able to collaborate and co-invest together. And that's also another approach we take. So a lot of our investments, we actually promote the co-investment element with it. So we either bring along other DFIs, we bring along other local commercial banks, we come along funds, we come along investors. This whole collaboration as the system actually integrates and works together towards a common goal and shared interest. I think that's where we can enhance and create a lot more value.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Okola, you heard what Dr. Labrang said. Given that you are the institution with the money, okay, that is very much African and in Africa, shouldn't the role of capacity building of the governmental agencies that are in charge of following up on startups and shouldn't this be your role? Have you worked? At the same time, you said much of in the venture capital area, even though this is really badly needed for entrepreneurs. So are you really addressing all the issues again? So my question is still for Mr. Okola. Do you feel that you are addressing the needs of Africa really? I mean, having heard what Dr. Labrang has mentioned, and given the 2 points, I hope you heard them, the capacity of the governmental institutes that are in charge, and having the venture capitals and getting into the areas that are really needed. Did you feel that you have done that? Okay, and what are you doing in order to improve the situation and improve the what the realization or the implementation of what needs to be done in order to benefit Africa from a developmental perspective?
Thank you very much, Dr. Latif. I think I'd like to start again by maybe just recognizing His Excellency, and I thank you very much. I think a very important question, one that of course is not an easy one to answer. As you know, we are a mandate-driven bank. So our strategy is actually premised on development outcomes. So whatever we do must have clear development outcomes that should link up and meet the needs of each of the requisite member states of the continent. So that would be job creation, increasing tax revenues, trade revenues, increasing industrialization on the continent. When we actually design our strategy, we look at the national development plans. We also look at the AU's vision. Of course, the plan that we're in now is the fifth strategic plan, which kicked off in 2017 and runs up until 2021. We called it Impact 2021 Africa Transformed. And the first strategic pillar was heavily premised on Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, where the AU, together with the member states, decided that they wanted to increase inter-African trade from 15%, like I mentioned earlier, to about 25% by 2030. So this is actually the first pillar of our strategic agenda. And everything we therefore do has come in to say, can we finance entities who are African entities that are involved in intra-African trade? And when we picked up this agenda in 2016, because we got the document approved by the board in December, by 2017, January 2017, our portfolio towards African entities that were supporting or doing intra-African trade was only 3%. So as the overall book grew over the last 4 years, 4 years into the strategy, we've also seen the stock of intra-African trade finance that we're giving to African entities increasing, and is increased by December, it actually got to 28%. So the overall book grew, but the intra-African trade stock grew even faster. So these are some of the specific, tangible interventions that I think you can see we're beginning to sort of intervene to create a step change for the continent. Hopefully aligned, like I mentioned, to the national development plans of each of the member states. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is around industrialization and export development, which actually is the second pillar of the bank's strategy. We were trying to enhance industrial capacity on the continent, so that we stop exporting commodities in their raw form and we begin to do serious levels of value addition. So this should open up a whole realm of opportunities around industrial capacity, capacity building, bringing in, like I mentioned, in that value chain, some of the low-end SMEs, startup communities into this bigger value chain so that they can be part of the regional value chains of big entities. So I think this is also part of intervention that we have started doing in the 5th strategic plan, introducing a part of our portfolio that would focus on trade facilitation, which has elements of, I hope you can hear me, it says my network is unstable, elements of trade facilitation, which involves capacity building and those elements. We also recently, in this plan, also developed, like I mentioned, the Fund for Export Development, which is an equity fund. This is the first time the bank has done that in its 25 years existence. So that equity fund was given $100 million. Like I mentioned, though, this is slightly up the value chain in terms of later stage financing. But right now we're working on a paper, a positioning paper, which will go to the president and then probably to the board to see if we can unlock opportunities in the venture capital space. So this is, but we do that by finding out what the issues are, talking to requisite players who have more knowledge than we have, and then we build up a positioning paper, strategic paper, which then goes through the relevant approval. So hopefully, in response to His Excellency's question, we can only see that we will start doing more and more. So in the 6th strategic plan, which we start thinking about in 2021, you hopefully will see a higher component of what we are doing coming in and reducing in terms of the amounts that we're giving, hopefully begin to unlock that element. Because like I said, right now, our sweet spot stops at $5 million and we go up to, 100 million, and a lot of our interventions are to various partners. So this is really in totality the issues that I think we will see the bank continue to focus on as we look into the future. Thank you very much, Dr. Remy, and back to you.
I think given that you have the capacity building, this is very important. And if you are getting into the equity financing, I think this is really critical because this is at the heart of the expansion. Do you see potential in being part of this GF initiative? Does this sound like it's something that you guys would be part of or can be part of?
Thank you, and I think I would sort of take your cue to say, Dr. Khalid and my brothers from Bank Ministry, I think need to definitely ensure that ECES has some stake, because it's the networking. That was supposed to happen physically in our offices this year, but because of some of the challenges brought about by COVID, we've delayed the physical element. But to me, it's not around the physical space. It's around the idea and the partnerships. So I think that is something that we shall pick up, especially from today's conversation. So thank you for that.
Okay, very, very good. We're very close to running out of time, but I have one quick question for Mr. Hani Farhad, and I have one big question for His Excellency, Dr. Labareng. So be prepared until I finish with Mr. Hani. So Hani, you said we are encouraging women entrepreneurship and the areas where women can do best. What are the areas where women can do best? I always ask myself this question. Whenever they talk about women entrepreneurship, the sectors that are suitable. What are the sectors that are suitable? Sectors that are suitable for women. What is it about women that you can do that give them better access to everything?
No, I think you would be surprised at the number of cases that is presented to Bank Ministry for funding when it comes to small businesses that are run by women. And I think the consumer sphere is one major example. So most of the cases that we see coming from Upper Egypt or Lower Egypt are basically tailored towards covering a specific market gap within such governance. Market gaps that are related to food processing, market gaps that are related to domestic services, maybe other byproducts of the consumer space in general. So this is definitely a first priority. And the second is definitely, I wouldn't say manufacturing, but handcrafted type of activities as well that are productive or conducive to very simple items that are needed by every single household in Egypt, for example, is also another space that we see women striving in. Now, the reason why we think this is a priority of development is that, as I mentioned, and I think most of the economists on the group would basically agree with me, that women, when they are leading businesses such as those, the multiplier effect for income coming as a result is much, much higher than when men do the same. So it basically trickles down to a much larger number of individuals, of children, and it helps the development of that social sphere in a very good sense.
Are these all in the form of micro enterprises, the very small ones, or we are talking about small enterprises as per the definition of the central bank, i.e., where the size of business is from 1 million to 50 million? Do you have women involved in this big segment?
That's a very good question. No, the majority is coming obviously in the microfinance space, but we see a huge potential of migration into the smaller business space. So those, because you see, I use the word startups and small and medium enterprises for this discussion interchangeably, because as Mr. Khaled was mentioning, the company that you see as a startup today is going to be the SME category 3-4 years down the road. So if I do not provide that microfinance when that startup needs it today, it will never ever grow. So if, as a fact, we're seeing the microfinance demand is coming so much from women, then 3-4 years down the road, we are going to see that category elevate into the small and medium-sized companies, and we don't have any doubt in that regards. So just to give you a small figure, so out of 40 billion Egyptian pound portfolio, in the last 2 years, we've managed to increase our women allocation to around 3.5 billion Egyptian pounds, and it's actually growing at a very fast pace. So maybe 3 years from now, we could easily reach 10 billion Egyptian pounds.
All right, thank you very much.
And I say something quickly to we have invested in about 6 female founders so far in Egypt. The company you saw on the video, QB, that manufactures, the co-founder is a female engineer from Mansoura. And I honestly don't like to limit females, to handcraft and things like that. It's great for micro in Upper Egypt, probably yes, I agree with Mr. Hani there. But I think the potential, if you go to engineering schools in Egypt, there are 50% of the students are females. So why don't we see 50% of the entrepreneurs and the founders being females? I think there is still lack of support. A lot of investors shy away from female entrepreneurs for some reason that I don't agree or don't see at all. And I have to say, I'm actually extremely happy with our 6 female entrepreneurs really outperforming their male counterparts. So in that sense, we should really encourage females not to do a limited kind of scope of work or SMEs, but they should be everywhere. And by the way, women have brains just like men or better. So it's not.
They are better for sure, ya Khaled.
It's not only in their hands. It's not only.
Just a follow-up comment in case our part was misunderstood. We do not dictate the handicraft on women to be eligible for our funding. No, this is what our branch network mapping across Egypt has led as a client segment to our bank. So definitely we're open to fund many sectors, but this is where the traffic we have seen coming for our branches to have been noticeable.
I understand, but I agree completely with Khaled, because the women are always taken in this direction. It's like you see a female, doing a bit of sewing, a bit of those little things that are suitable for a, very sweet nature, stuff like that. But the reality is they actually can do everything else and succeed beautifully in it. It's not the problem of the bank, it's a cultural thing.
Yes, of course.
If you offer incentives that would encourage women to join and showcase the success stories like the one that Khaled was talking about.
And that's why we have the business development centers, and we have the design houses that Mr. Etribi was speaking about, whereby this is also offered to our microfinance clients in order to understand how to grow those businesses. So maybe that handicraft small business that we're talking about today could become a small workshop and then a small factory that produces garments, that produces children's wear, that produces linens that are suitable for all Egyptians. So I wouldn't really categorize handicraft and limit it to the simplicity of it. No, it's a seed to what could become a very sophisticated product down the road.
Absolutely. It would be great if Bank Minister can actually lead the change, not respond to the culture, change the culture. We all need to change the culture, whether we're talking Egypt or all African countries, we are all in the same boat. Back to you, Dr. Labrang, with the last words. You said they are not doing enough for the development, and you're very outspoken about it. Now, let me ask you, in order for them to expand, they need market information. Is market information something that's easily available in the African countries? I know it's not sometimes available in the case of Egypt. And there are three parts to the question. This is the first one. The second one, the sectors that Khalid mentioned, the health tech, the agri-tech, and the waste management. Do you see them as priority sectors? Or let's say, what are the sectors that you would add to these as sectors where you would like to see entrepreneurship activity? And then the third one relates to what actually Mr. Etrebi mentioned briefly when he just visited us a few minutes ago and said, facilitate the approvals, because we are having issues with the central banks of the different African countries. Are ease of regulation something that's easy to happen? Do they see the importance of the financing is available? The question is how to take it to the actual implementation step. There are many steps in between. Some of them are the responsibility of the Afro-Exim Bank, all the groups that are coming in, but it's also the responsibility of the governments themselves, not only to ask for something, but to offer, okay? And make what they ask for clearer and more visible for the institutions to benefit from. So what do you say to this?
Okay, first of all, let me tell you that you'll be very surprised that the information is there, but maybe the people are not looking into the right, places to get them. For example, Afro-Exim Bank developed, a platform, trying to give, possibility of any African investor or any to make what we call the to get the real information for them to do the due diligence, and this platform is there. But if you ask most of our, investors in Egypt or in some, they don't know that it does exist. So this is one thing. So the information is there. Many governments have made it very, very clear that they want to push the information, but sometimes, people are very reluctant to go out of their zone of comfort. They are comforted. They are being used to working with some institutions or in some part of the world. They don't see that the opportunities, you need to unlock them, and for you to unlock them, you have to do your homework and to go, to ask for the information. So now, as part of the second question, we have sustainable development in every area. We have agriculture, but there are also education. Education is a very, very important part of the requirement of Africa to really develop. And we can, you see, if we ask how many universities, African universities, do you count among the 500 best universities in the world? Maybe one, you see? And this is a domain where there is need for financing, need for entrepreneurship, and need for really funding. So, but we have to look for that. And if you want Africa really to meet its challenges, we need to educate, and education in the fields that are really needed for the development of Africa. So this is one of the, and also the environment. What are the possibilities to help, startups but also, regular and traditional companies to come into in a very huge way. How do they come into the sector of really, fighting for climate change? Also, green, clean energy, and these are things that we need also to address. And now the third questions I don't remember. And you
the regulations, the change in the regulations, the facilitation for this collaboration to take place for branches, for Bank Misr and others to have over there. There are approvals that are obviously taking a very long time and complex.
This is a very critical issue, but there are efforts being made. For example, the new African free trade zone. How long it took for that to achieve, but it is a revolution if you look at it in the real way. Because now, if all African countries apply, the requirements that come from this agreement, we see very, very easy development of our industries and also of these. But first, what we did, taking into account this problem, we had, last year to come in all ourselves, ambassadors, to ask each one of us to bring it in what they have as regulatory, legal framework of doing business in their countries, and we put them together. And when you go through that, you see there are many similarities, but most of the differentiation come from the colonial setup of things that in our countries. So now, what do we do? How do we do to address this? Is through coming together and having institutions like Africa Exim Bank who have their research centers to come with us and try to see how we can bring together those regulations and propose, regulations that would be, applicable in the whole continent. Because now we consider Africa not as, medical, but as one market. If you consider it as one market, then you need to bring in, regulations and contract schemes that can be fitting and for everybody. So this reflection is being conducted. Especially, we have a very, very capable representative of the Commission of African, the Commission of Economic Commission of Africa in Addis Ababa, who is doing this job very, very ably, and we count on her, and she's a woman. You count on her to see, yes, to see that we are going to achieve, success in that. Okay.
I'm happy already. It means that the job is almost done. You have the right person in charge, so it's gonna work. It's gonna work. As we finish up, let me say just one last word, and it actually builds on what His Excellency just said about seeing Africa is one unit, one whole thing, and that the regulations need to be unified. And there are so many things that are duplicated between countries and should not be there. We at ECS are building a lot of interest in Africa. Okay, and one of the things that we did last year, actually, and His Excellency was also involved with us, was talk about research on African development and how this research, how Africa is actually over-researched and under-researched at the same time. There are things that everybody's talking about, and there are others that nobody talks about at all. And in order to settle this and unify efforts, we created something called African Research Forum. Walid, would you put the slide, please? Only one slide. We did it as ECS, and we decided to take the initiative of inviting everybody, think tanks from all over the world that are interested in Africa, to communicate with us so that we put on one platform, on this African research platform, all the information of the research that already exists, and the abstracts also for the future research, so that things don't get repeated and there are room for ideas. And we're going to create out of this a database where you can search for any information on Africa by sector, by area, by country, etc., etc., etc. And what we have here is the website for the demo preview, and we invite anyone, okay, that has interest in Africa as a research bank to actually contact us as ECS, okay, and to know more details so that they can become part of this African research platform. And having said this, I thank you very much for being here. I think it was a lovely session. Very glad to see you all, and we are definitely going to have a follow-up at a minimum in order to get ECS's share, okay, for everything that all the business that's taking place here from all those parties. All of you have money, big smiles, all right? So we have to get our share in it.
If you allow me, I would like to have a plea for the Egyptian bankers and business people. Please look to the south and to the west also. Don't look only to the eastern part of Africa. There is room, really, to develop and for you to have, a stake in what is coming in Africa now. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I second that 100%. And our next event is going to focus on the areas that are not receiving much interest at this point and deserve it. So we are going to arrange
Central and West Africa, Central and West Africa.
South and West Africa. Thank you very much. I thank you all. I thank my very distinguished panelists, all of them. Mr. Mohammed Al-Itribi, Mr. Hani Farahat, Shodi, Dr. Khalid Ismail, Dr. Robert Okola, and His Excellency Dr. Labarang. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.